Okay, I have 12 o'clock. And for those who know me, you know that I'm ex-military. So I'm very big on starting and ending on time. It's one of those critical things that we have to do as leaders within our organization. So I want to welcome you to Business Continuity Planning, Getting to Your New Normal. Okay? New normal, wow.
Your webcam.
Ideally, we should be getting to a new normal every single day. It would be very sad if yesterday was exactly like today. What a waste yesterday would have been. So within our organization, we have to start getting to,
Yeah.
Is my webcam not on? Start sharing, hang on. There we go. Now you can see me. I hope so.
We can see you now, Dan. Great. Thank you.
Okay. So with getting to your new normal, it should be a continuous activity, which is why it's called continuity planning. Okay. The world is dynamic. The world is changing around us all the time. New technology, everything. So what we have to do within our organization is shift. Now, what has happened with COVID-19 is we were forced to shift very quickly. Now, I've had people sort of say, nobody saw this coming. Our organization was lucky enough, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but we supported other organizations in the H1N1 pandemic. And we went into organizations and we helped them develop their continuity plans. Now, those organizations, I'll tell you right now, with this pandemic, it was like doing business as normal. So as long as we're planning ahead, these things shouldn't have as big an impact on us. There's talk of the second wave. So you might be looking at this business continuity webinar and saying, well, you know, Dan, we should have done this last September. Yeah, maybe. But for next September, you will now be ready. And that's really what we're having a look at. Oh, I can do this. There we go. So let's talk about the plan. I tend to go around for anybody who's listened to me before, but we'll talk about COVID. We'll talk about continuity planning and what is this thing called a business continuity plan. We're going to figure out what needs to change, okay? Because something has to change. We're not going to change everything, but we'll talk about that. We'll come up with some immediate actions for you, some things that you can do right away. And one of the things in coming up with those actions is we have to figure what our business priorities are. And then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go back and create a management framework. So I'll give you some guidelines for doing that. And then you're going to talk about managing the risk, which is very important, of course. And then you're going to have to determine exactly what changes need to be done. We don't have to do everything, but what needs to be done? Some static. Let's see. Oh, moving my mic away. Getting feedback. You guys are getting too much of me. So let's just do this. See if that works. If we have to, I can just pull the plug on this fancy microphone and just go with the computer. Okay, we're going to talk about determining the change, and then you're going to have to update your resources, because basically that's what continuity planning is all about, and this is what the pandemic is hitting the most, is the resources. And then you have to show yourself in a leadership role. There's no doubt about that. So what exactly is COVID-19? Well, I'm going to do my best Donald Trump impression in that I'm not a doctor. You guys probably know more about COVID-19 than I do. But what I do know is it's direct contact. The masks help. It impacts the people. So it's not like your computer is going to get COVID-19. The people are. And that means it impacts the processes that we work on, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we keep our people safe, because we want our people to come back to work. It's going to be at least 2 waves, right? Second wave sometime in September, October, depends on which news network you listen to. But overall, your workforce is going to be down in their staff. And there's lots of different places, so I hated putting numbers up. But you need to plan over a longer period of time of not having, let's say, 25% of your people, and maybe a short period of time where as much as 50% of your people are down. If you can come up with processes that work in that type of environment, your business is going to continue. So with continuity planning, as I mentioned, the asset the pandemic hits the most is the people. Now, I mentioned earlier that some people say, oh, we didn't see this coming. Well, we had SARS in 2003. We had the bird flu in 2006. We had the H1N1 in 2009. I'm pretty sure we had something in 2014 that I'm either forgetting about or didn't know about. Our organization needs to develop an agility. They need to develop a flexibility for your organization to be able to shift very quickly. Now, what did happen with COVID, it was basically told, let's see, I can easily switch to computer audio. Okay, let's see if that still has me. Okay, basically what it is with all these things happening, your organization has to decide how you're going to be ready for the next bump in the road. And so basically what happens is we have, simplistically, we're doing normal, and we were chatting earlier about getting back to normal. You're not going to get back to normal, by the way. There's got to be a new normal. You have to have a new normal every day. So let's just do a new normal for your business. Based on the pandemic, we're going to shift. We're going to move forward. We have the capability to define the new normal. The old normal's gone. Let it go. Okay? And we're in the middle of the pandemic right now. So that's something. Now, the whole thing with continuity planning is we're trying to continue our business, not maintain our business. So for organizations that are trying to get back to normal, that's not going to work. Okay? As a result of the pandemic, we had to make some changes. Now, the question is, are some of those changes now normal? I've had 3 people here in Halifax that have already said, yeah, I moved to home and they told me to stay home. My job is now permanently home. And that might be your situation as well, right? So what we have to do is we have to figure out what are some of those things that we put in place because of this pandemic that we're now saying, okay, this works. So it's going to be building on our successes from the last couple of months. But unfortunately, another pandemic is coming, wave 2, or bird flu 2025, or whatever is happening. So we've got to also build in the flexibility into our organization to realize this normal is not going to stay normal for long. You have to do something different all the time. So that's what we want to do, is build in that flexibility so people do not get as impacted. Now, one of the challenges with the COVID is a lot of people got stressed out by it. Now, you may not agree with me on this, but that's fine. Stress is a choice. Stress is something, things happen, and you see some people get stressed out and other people not. So we have to decide what is going to stress us. And that's really keeping our higher level purpose in mind. Working out of the office, working out of home, does it make a big difference, really? Okay. So what we have to do is we have to figure out how we're going to get to that new normal, realizing it's going to change. So in these slides, I've got some actions for you guys to consider. Okay, and maybe put in place to build on our successes during this pandemic. So what new resource needs have arisen during the pandemic? And when I talk resource needs, were there certain skill sets all of a sudden you realized you were missing? Were there certain skills that your team did not have in place that you realized, oh, that's too bad? Was there certain equipment that you really should have had in place? So what we want to do is identify what was missing and then determine whether those things are part of our new normal. Do you see these things as a capability for long term? And is your organization set up to incorporate this new normal? And what I mean by this is, are your processes such that you can do this? Or do you still need a physical signature from some executive that you've got to go into their COVID-infested office and get their signature? So what we have to do is we have to look at modifying our processes and modifying how we are doing things to get things into play. So that's what continuity planning is all about. So as you can see right now, what we have to do is whatever's happening on the 25th of June is your normal. Is your organization adjusting the way they define business based on the 25th of June? Because the trouble is, if your team is just sitting there and saying, oh yeah, well, let's just wait this out, that's bad. But if your team is working hard and figuring out the way we do business on the 25th of June is the best way to do it on the 25th of June, great. You'll move forward a lot easier. So what we have to do is have a continuity plan. So for those of you that know me, I'm a project management type. So this is effectively a project management plan. And the key thing of having a plan really is communications. Letting your team know what it is you're going to be doing as a result of a pandemic, of a sleet storm, anything that might happen. How are we going to continue business? Now again, continue business, not necessarily maintain business. So what we have to do, figure, and you've already done this, believe it or not, what are the most important aspects of your business? And the reason I say you've done this is there are certain aspects of your business you guys stopped doing as a result of COVID. So I'm going to challenge you, should you start doing them again? If you could get away for the last 3 months with not doing those aspects of your business, maybe you don't need it anymore. I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm just saying you need to consider that, right? So what we have to do is the business continuity plan focuses on a lack of resources, a lack of personnel, because that's normally what impacts. If you have a plan, you give confidence to people. It's a communications tool. Yes, we will follow the plan, but it's communicating to people that we have our act together. It outlines how we're going to run in a crisis. And if we can put one of these in play, like I did with H1N1 in 2009 with some organizations, when the businesses run into crisis, they have a plan. Now, if you've ever worked with plans, plans are only good for about 35 seconds. So they're continually changing. So what I would like to have, what I'd like you guys to have, is a business plan for running things according to the environment of the 25th of June. Now, what's going to happen is things are going to change on the 28th. Great. Update the plan. But we always want to have a plan in place to show people this is how we're running our business. Have confidence in this. And we're talking about confidence. We're talking about our stakeholders. We're talking about people who are investing money. We're talking about our customers. We're talking about our suppliers. We're talking about our team. We're talking about the team's spouses and families. Yeah, that's really what we want to do. So my question to you is, does your organization have a documented business continuity plan or something in play? When I worked at EDS, it was really great because up on the wall, there was a plan that said, if you are not able to come into work or the office is closed, here's the 7 steps. Now, not only does your organization have a documented business continuity plan, do your junior engineers know what it is? Because having a plan that nobody knows about, it's not good. So open communications, and I bet you found this out, right, during COVID? Open communications has become critical for your organization to succeed. So let's talk about the changes. The why should continue. The why you do business, your vision, the mission, the reason for being of your organization probably doesn't change. The business and products and services, they're probably going to adjust. So my organization, we do training. We do a lot of PMP certification. We do project management fundamentals, cool stuff like that. In September, I'd say we're about 50-50 between being in class and virtual. Well, guess what? Right now, we're 100% virtual. I had a customer in Montreal that was insisting I get to Montreal like this week. And I kept saying, I don't think we can pull that off. So our business products and services, so I'm still part of a training organization, but the way we do training, yeah. Which means our methods, our plans, our tools, they all need to change. So from a top level, your vision and mission shouldn't change, but your methods and plans definitely change. Now, the way it usually works is why the organization exists is defined by the CEO and their best friends. Okay? The managers and stuff basically come up with what's provided by operations, what sort of projects should we have, what's our customer base, and the method and plans are done by the team. So part of business continuity planning is getting the team involved. The business continuity plan driving force really is not the CEO, it's the junior engineers, because they are the ones that are most impacted by this. So at some point in time, you do want the top level to come down and say, this is what we're now doing, because it gives it a little bit of, power and stuff like this. But you need to get the junior engineers, the who involved, because they are the ones that get the job done. So find out what they're thinking about. Now, as they're changing the what and the how, they have to have vision of the who. Sorry, I said that wrong. They have to have vision of the why. Sorry, I was thinking Gatorade. So the question is, does your organization have a documented vision and mission? I love the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm sure engineers in Nova Scotia is the same. You walk in the Chamber of Commerce and the first thing you see is their strategic plan. You can read it really easy and see their 10-year vision. And so a lot of organizations, unfortunately, the vision and mission are tucked inside the CEO's left-hand drawer. So the junior engineers don't know what it is. So do your junior engineers know, do you know what the vision and mission of your organization is? So some of the immediate actions we have to do is we have to create some accountability. Okay, we definitely want to get that in play. And what we want to do is we want to come up with a team. Okay, and the team basically is reinforcing the why, should be cross-functional, definitely has to include an awful lot of the areas that the business has in play. So if you have 6 business units, you need to have people from the 6 different teams. You need to give it real authority. You need to have somebody that will step forward and speak for the CEO or this, yeah. Having somebody just work on this as their 2nd or 3rd or 4th level job doesn't work. And then you have to designate a leader or champion. I do not recommend that be some higher level executive that has a lot to do, because this business continuity, when it's kicked into play, is a busy, busy, busy job. So I don't know if any of you sort of watch CNN or some of these, but Governor Cuomo from New York State, he's on TV a lot. And from what I can tell, and I am not a statistician, the numbers from New York look pretty good. So he's very well read. He's got a good presentation style, but every now and then he gets asked a question and he doesn't know the answer. Well, to his side, there's a young lady, and I should know her name, but she stands up and she says, on the 14th of February, we did this, and the 27th of July, we did this, and we met with this guy, and we met with this person, and da-da-da-da-da. And she goes, boom, 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 and she's got all the answers, she's got all the details. That's the one I want leading my business continuity planning team, okay? Cuomo is great, but I don't want him leading this team. I want her leading this team. So you need to designate a leader and champion, and if you have a project charter, they have a box on your org chart. Now, what we're really doing is working with perception. We're trying to give the perception that our organization is in control and we are actually moving forward. Okay? Yeah, and perception is fact, okay, to a lot of people. So that's what we're working on, is communication. And it also shows we're being proactive versus reactive. So wouldn't it have been cool, and maybe some of your organizations had this, that when COVID-19 hit, someone pulled something out and said, hey, here's our COVID-19 reaction plan. Would have been, whoa, that would have been impressive. And that's what we want to do for wave 2. We want to have a plan in place so when wave 2 happens, we just do what's planned. So with this, creating accountability, you're creating awareness that things are changing, you're setting the direction, and you're providing your business priorities. And we'll get more into that in just a second. So my question to you is, does your organization have a designated change manager? Right? This person with authority. Is there somebody that when things go bip in the night, this person has a little extra authority and can make things happen? And do your junior engineers know who it is? Okay. So in determining the business priorities, we have to reinforce why the organization exists in the first place. And as I mentioned to you before, you guys have already done this because there's certain aspects of your business that are not being performed. The priorities need to be driven by the strategic plan. One of the things that we did a lot for a lot of organizations during the H1N1 is we went in and said, okay, tell us what you do here. And tell us why that operational department exists. Why is that person here? What do they do? And we put a bit of value statements on different operational units. Getting help is good, because if you have people that are internal to the organization, everybody's going to be protecting their turf. But if you can talk about what your priority is, then during planning, when your team's making decisions, it's a lot easier for them to say, yeah, let's not do that right now. Let's work on this. There's an 80-20 rule, and it's applied to absolutely everything, of course, where 80% of your business results come from 20% of your business. So maybe we should be focusing on that 20% of your business. I'll give you a quick example of changing priorities. I work with Scouts Canada, and we have an Atlantic Jamboree 2020, which, surprise, surprise, got canceled. Okay, so now we're the Atlantic Jamboree 2021. Now, during the Atlantic Jamboree 2020, we were very concerned about cost. Everything we were doing was driven by cost. We weren't allowed to spend one extra cent. 2021, it's more about visibility. Between you and I, it has to happen. The credibility is there. So our business priority has changed. We're willing to spend a little extra money now if it gives the Jamboree a little more credibility. So your organization probably did a shift as well. So what were your organization's priorities pre-pandemic? What was everybody focused on? And how have they changed? Are there things that would have been not acceptable in September that now you go, yeah, okay, that's fine. You know. Now the other thing that's happened, and I'm sure you're aware, is your customer has changed as well, right? Your customers' business priorities have changed. So maybe our organization has to change for our customer base. So we have to come up with things that are supporting people that are working out of home maybe a lot better. So business continuity plan, boring slide, and I apologize for that. So this is something for you to take away and perhaps use with your own organization, because what it does is defines how we're going to manage the plan, the change, what's happening. So what methods might be in place, what roles and responsibilities. It's that stuff that's been locked in the back room for 5 years since H1N1. Maybe we should go find it, pull it out. So this is a nice little list. The key with this plan is it's unique to you. So I can't tell you what your business continuity plan should have in it. You have to figure that out because you know your business a heck of a lot better than I do. Okay. Quick thing on project management maturity, because that's where I come from. Because as we're putting the business continuity in place and as we're managing the change of our organization to the new normal, it's effectively a project. So again, another great checklist. What's the scope? That's the what needs to change. How are we going to know if it worked? When do we have to have it in play by? Right? Looking at wave 2, for instance. What sort of budget do we have in place? And it might not be a dollar budget as much as 3 people working on this, maybe part-time. What resources do you need to have in play? For me, it would be innovation, good communicators. How are we going to communicate people? Because I've mentioned it a few times, as these plans go in place, we got to let the world know, right? And do we need help? What resource procurement has to have in play? And that's really how we got involved in H1N1, because Irving actually called us up. I had done a risk management course for them, and they said, well, you know, this is a risk. Can you come in and help us put this thing in play? So you may need outside help. And then for success, what are some of the risks? What are some of the uncertainties you need to know about? Stakeholder management is key because everybody's life is changing, but that's okay. And that's what stakeholder management is all about. Reinforcing people that we still have control, we're still moving ahead, they're still going to have a job 6 months from now. And then integration management, how does this plan impact other aspects of the organization? So we definitely want to have that in play. So we have to determine what is at risk. Sorry, I paused. But I guess we almost have to determine first what is a risk. So for me, a risk would be I can't do training. Not so much of what training course is being provided or how we provide it or anything like that. If I had no trainers in my organization anymore, yeah, that wouldn't be good. So when we're talking about risk, we're moving from an area of uncertainty, some constraints. It's hard to develop probabilities. Things are unpredictable. And I know you're looking at this and going, hey, Dan, that's my life. That's my job. That's our organization. Yeah, and that's why you're here. Because what we'd like to do is get in control. Now, again, I pause because I don't know if we'll ever be 100% in control or 100% predictable, but we want to move towards that. So we want to move from facts. We don't want rumors anymore. And one of the hardest parts is we have to be committed to change. If you are trying to go back to normal, it's going to be a problem because I don't think we'll ever get there. There's a new normal. So let's commit to shifting and changing and planning for success. And so with success, we're looking at organizational success. Hopefully it's personal success as well. So what we're going to do is we have to gather information, which is why you're at this webinar. And it's why you probably listen to some shows and things that you never listened to before, is trying to gather some information to give you a feel that you are actually in control of your life and that your organization is in control of what they are doing. So what we have to do as an organization is put in some management and control processes to look at risks. Now, risks are also opportunities. Okay? We've wanted to shift our training to a virtual platform for quite a while, but we had a hard time with some of our customer base. They like in-class training. So I have to admit, when this COVID thing happened, I was, okay, this could be good. And I think that's what we almost have to do with most risks. This could be good. People working out of home, a lot of people were just floored by that. But according to, I should remember this, Simplicity Design, I believe it is, yeah, 29% of jobs can work from home. And as I've mentioned, I already know a couple of people, 3 people, who have told me, hey, I'm working out of home now. Shopify has totally converted to an at-home platform. My son, who works in Montreal, he's at home, and he's saying, I don't know if I have to ever go back into the office. So there are things that were considered risks, might be negative, that we now look and say, well, let's take an opportunity of that. The key thing is to change the processes around how we are doing things. There's no sense having processes that require people at the office if they're at home. Also, if we have a reduced workforce, if we have a 6-person process and only 4 people trying to do it, it's not going to work. So what we have to do is develop a 4-person process. And I know what you're thinking. Oh yeah, but in a month I'll have 6 people again. Great. Change it back to a 6-person process then. But for right now, with your 4 people, they need a 4-person process to have success. Otherwise, they'll miss things all the time and just say, oh, well, the process, I don't have the people. We're missing this, we're missing that. Let's change the processes so people can succeed. So my question to you, do you have any of those 6-people processes perhaps being done by 4 people? Is there anything you should redefine because of the workforce you have in place on the 25th of June? That will give people confidence that we actually know what the heck we're doing. So in planning for the new normal, there are some assumptions, there are some constraints, and the sooner we accept constraints as the new normal, the easier it's going to deal with. Now, I'm not saying these are all facts. These are all things that you have to consider. So right now, most organizations have diminished revenues or profits. Can we operate at these diminished revenues and profits long term? Waiting for the money to come back might not come back. So can we shift our business to be a viable business with diminished revenues and profits? Okay. The pandemic is global, so that means some of these suppliers, some of this outside help, you might not get it. So our marketing model, we're very lucky. We do global business. So I've got customers in South Africa, in Sweden, in China, in Fiji, some in the States, all throughout Canada. And the reason we like that is if something happens in Nova Scotia, we've got other customers, other places. We can continue to do business. Unfortunately, this time, the pandemic is global. So every single one of our customers worldwide has been impacted. We have to assume that we're only going to have, or so that we're going to have reduced staff for a long period of time. Some of what used to be normal, for instance, telling people or expecting people to work overtime, is not going to happen as easily because they have families that they are concerned about. They don't want to be in traffic. There's all sorts of things like this. So some of these norms from before, I think, are gone. We're going to lose people. And we have to realize that. Putting people in an unsafe environment, some of them might die. Those with diabetes, they're older. So we've got to be careful of that. And if we're asking people to come back to work, we've got to show them that we have an environment where they're not going to die. I know that sounds extreme, but I do believe that that's the case. Government departments, suppliers, they're not 100% available. I know some of the mail. I don't know if you guys have gotten any snail mail lately. It takes a long time. I've ordered a couple of things through Amazon, like 6 weeks. It used to take a couple of days. Absolutely insane. So some of these departments are not going to be available. If your organization depends strongly on some government department helping you 100% of the time, it's not good. So, are there policies and procedures in your organization that should be added to this list, right? So what was most impacted by the pandemic? Were there policies or procedures that you just look at now and go, wow, that's stupid. We're not going to do that. Maybe that's the new normal. Okay. Did you change them to allow your team who's working on the 25th of June to actually have a policy or procedure in place for now? Right? And should these become part of the new normal? So get away from calling it an interim policy or a temporary policy or a draft policy. Nobody pays attention to those. That sounds like I can break the policy and no one's going to care less. Make it the policy. And if it has to change next week, change it again. So in planning the new normal, phase one, we're going to work top down. Okay. We're going to figure out what elements of your organization provide the greatest impact. And that's a tough one. Because what is going to happen, and I've been there are going to be entire departments of your organization that you scratch your head and go, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. So as a quick example, I worked for EDS, Electronic Data Systems. And when I worked for EDS, it was a department of General Motors. Because General Motors, when they started to automate, and they automated their accounting system, and they automated their invoice system, and they automated their car preparation, their operation system, everything got automated. So they bought EDS, software company. In the mid-'80s, and I should know who he was, the mid-'80s, a new president of General Motors came in and discovered that 37% of his workforce were software engineers. And he scratched his head and said, but I thought we made cars. Why is 30% of my workforce software engineers? So they got rid of it. You might be going through the same sort of thing. There are parts of your organization that you look at, you figure out what provided the greatest impact, and then you identify those elements that really don't provide the impact you want. Okay? So, to be blunt, if a business is not a core business, stop doing it. Okay? Bring outside people in. Get rid of your documentation department and use a company whose life is doing documentation. Maybe get rid of your training organization and bring in a company whose life is training. Photocopy maintenance. You get what I'm saying. So if it's not a core business, you really have to decide whether you want to throw good money after bad and get your money back towards those elements of your organization that provide the greatest impact. This is a tough thing to do. You've got to sit with your org chart and go through it and challenge every single box in your organization. So you need to look at what your organization's business processes are. Look at your org chart, look at your organizational breakdown structure, and prioritize them against the core business priorities. Why are we in business? And you can use whatever method you want. I had a system of 1 to 5. So we go through and say, for each box, what is the impact to the business? Is it critical? Yeah. And then decide what to do with the lowest priority items. Should you discontinue them? Can you get help from outside? I'm not saying get rid of them all. All I'm saying is consider whether we continue that business or not. So in planning the second phase, it's working bottom up. And what we're doing bottom up is we're working with the team. Remember earlier I talked about the who, the methods, getting the team involved. And if you do that, they own the plan, right? Shared ownership. That way, 2 months from now, when you say, hey, remember you defined this process? Let's do it. So they'll identify the methods, and they have, no offense, they have no more creativity and innovation than some of us older guys. So I'd love that innovation. I don't want to pull them back to the way we did business in 1982. I want them to define business the way we're going to do it in 2032. Let's start moving forward, okay? And then the business continuity plan, we still have a little bit of power there. We're going to roll it up. We're going to review them. We're going to collate it. We'll deal with a little bit of conflict where 2 different divisions are fighting for some turf, right? And once we have this redefinition, we have to see if we still have the right people in place. And it's not necessarily the people as much as the right skills in place to succeed in this new normal. I've been with an organization where we basically shifted from a service organization to a product organization. And we did have people that stepped forward and said, you know, this isn't the company I wanted to work for. So you may find out that there are people that are going to shift or leave, or you need to part ways with. But that's part of getting to the new normal. So let's talk about these resources. Right? As I mentioned earlier, 29% of jobs work from home. Right? Sorry for the pause. When people are working from home, their availability is a little more shift. My experience has been when you have people working from home, you get more than your 40 hours a week, but you don't get it from 9 to 5. Okay. A lot of people are taking breaks in their day and doing other stuff, and I think that's fantastic. The other thing that you might have identified is some unique skill sets. Are there people like Engineer Bob who has a skill that nobody else has? And when you don't have availability to Engineer Bob, things can't happen, right? Are there suppliers, goods, services that you've become reliant on? So in this global environment, I do believe we have to stop being so dependent on unique skills. Our customers are changing. Regulations are continually changing. And I'm sure some of you are in aspects or industries where you're waiting for the newest regulation. I guess we're all waiting for the newest regulations with regards to COVID. Right? And so what we have to do with the new resources and the new skills is update our processes. No sense having processes for those skill sets of September 2019. Let's get the processes in place for the 25th of June. And the other thing we have to look at is safety. We have to still make sure, obviously, that we have the right skill sets in place to ensure safe use of the equipment. So there will be some regulations, some aspects that we really cannot shift. So based on the challenges you've had, perhaps you can identify new skill sets you're going to need. So what resources challenges have you had in the past month? Excuse me. Maybe it's the use of Zoom. Maybe you have to have monthly Zoom use meetings. I don't know. And have you adopted, I guess they both work. Have you adopted these as a new normal? These needs, these resources. Has working out of home become part of a new normal? Because I bet there's a lot of organizations where they insisted people into the office, but now that people have worked out of home, the next time they call in and say, look, Johnny's sick, I'm going to work out of home today, no problem. At least I hope it's that way. So looking at some of the core skills that we have to have in play, I'm sure you know Theory X, Theory Y. Theory X people, yeah, you got to be on them all the time. They're not self-motivated. They only do as they're told, whereas Theory Y people are very innovative, very creative. And I think in our new normal, we want those people. We want people who think outside the box. And sometimes that's scary because sometimes our organization are very in a box. This is a box, and these people out here we don't really like. But I really think we need people to do that to be able to succeed in our new normals. Getting certified is important for showing your customers, your suppliers, your investors that your organization has the capability. Right? Maybe some leadership skills, some entrepreneurship skills. People who are self-starters are good. People innovative, creative. And maybe one of the hard ones is trusting. Do you trust your team? Yeah, I'm willing to bet you trust them a little more than you used to. I'm hoping there are people that surprised you that started working out of home and they got some amazing stuff done. They don't do anything around the office, but working out of home, wow. So we have to start trusting our team a lot more. It's dry here in Halifax today. So what skills have you discovered that were lacking during the crisis? Might be on these lists, might be other things, but you need to jot those down. And then what are you going to do to incorporate them into the new normal? Make some of these skills part of everybody's core skills. Then we have to modify our environment, which is putting some training in place, right? Maybe some training on pandemic. Generally, you don't have to necessarily do COVID. We know that some of our people might have had some challenges during this time. Maybe we need some training on that. Some new skills that we didn't think we needed before, but we need in our new environment. Cross-functional training. Depends on your organization. Do we want to allow people to start going outside the boundaries of their department? Right? Because there might be opportunities that they have to do a little bit of marketing, or they have to do a little bit of other stuff. And as mentioned before, getting your team certified in international standards is key. And we have found with our PMP, we've had a lot of people step forward that were, yeah, I don't really think so. But now they realize because their organization is shifting, the organization has to prove their capability like they never did before. And some of the employees have to show their capability like they did before. And then we're going to update the processes around them. Communicate, communicate, communicate. You need to strengthen, and it's hard right now, these supplier partnerships. Because one of the challenges that a lot of people had, and maybe still having, your suppliers have limited capacity. They're going to go to their key customers. So the question is, are you a key customer for your supplier? Can you go into the supplier and ask for something that is in limited supply and be near the top of the list? So this is where relationship, I think, is going to come into play. And getting supplies in place for the next wave is critical. And I'm not just talking pandemic supplies, although that's not a bad idea. What supplies did you run out of? Okay, that you could not get access to because Staples was closed. I don't know if Staples ever closed. Anyway, yeah, what stuff could you not get access to? So what training do you wish that you had completed for your team in 2019? As I just mentioned, what supplies were lacking during your COVID experience? And what suppliers can come in and help? Because some of these things, well, you were in the state you were in September 2019 based on your current employees. They're great people, by the way, but based on your current team. Perhaps you need somebody that can think outside the box to come into your organization and say, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And then we need to update our communications policies, practices to include things like making Zoom acceptable and things like this. I know there has to be a little bit of work on some of the different securities of some of these different systems. The workload is changing. The travel restrictions are there. We have to update our employee policies about coming to work. One of the things we talked about during H1N1 is how do you keep sick people away from work? So if I'm sick and I'm an hourly employee, and if I don't come into work, I don't get paid, guess what? I'm coming into work. And admittedly, I'm putting others at risk. We need to update our policy so this does not happen. So I don't think that you can over-communicate. So this slide here comes from my H1N1. And what we want to do is we want to set up an environment where people feel safe. Safe to come into your office, safe to work with you. And this is your employees, your customers, your suppliers. Right? So the more you communicate, the better off it is. I have to admit, I know some people complain about this. I liked getting the emails from Michaels that said, Michaels is taking steps to keep you safe. We're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. You know, a lot of people might say, hey, I haven't been to Michaels in 3 years. Why do I care? But it gave me confidence to go in there. Because I don't think right now you can be too safe. I think letting people know that your organization is overly safe would be good. So requiring staff, visitors to stay away if they're sick, rearranging the floor plans, put a little physical distancing in place, right? Talk about cultural norms, minimize shaking hands, hugging, those large meetings. I'm telling you what you already know. Minimize shared equipment. using other people's phones and things like this. And you might be set up where you have shift workers that come in, and maybe you'll have to stay that way, but you're going to have to put in new sanitation, staggering of hours. They're talking about staggering the hours of school in September. So perhaps we're going to have to stagger our hours of work because it's going to change our work-life balance. I'm very lucky. I work at home. Pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, I'm here. So my 13-year-old can be downstairs. That's cool. But we may have to stagger in order to have a safe environment. Okay. So this list are some lessons from H1N1. So the organizations that we helped out in 2009, they already implemented this stuff. So as a result, when the H1N1 hit, it wasn't quite as bad. So do any of these apply to your business? And I guess the question is, you might look at this list and go, well, yeah, this makes sense. But is it documented? Is it policy? Is it now incorporated into your organization? So you, as an individual, and you know it's going to come down to you, right? You have to help transform your organization. You have to be a leader in doing that. And leaders are not at the top. The most effective leaders are the ones that are in the middle, the ones that are in the bottom and grade at groundswell. So you have to see yourself as an agent for change. You have to believe that you can go into a meeting and say, hey, we should do this. You have to believe that your organization is going to succeed. You have to believe you have a strong organization, and all you have to do is make some adjustments, and you have to make sure people hear that. You have to believe in other people. You cannot adjust it. You need some friends. And if you have a core set of values that hopefully you've been using in the past, people are going to believe in you. Do you have those leaders that you'll do anything they ask you to do because they're just such good people? Hopefully people say that about you. So when you stand up and say, we should do this, yeah. Lifelong learner, you guys are proving it by being here, so that's cool. This is a hard one. Be able to confidently deal with uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity. Wow. And that is, while the world around you is spinning out of control, are you sitting there going, okay, I got this. I'm good. Okay? Because like I said, stress is a choice. When everybody else is stressed, we/you have to be the one that's there. And have a vision for yourself. Have a vision for your organization. Have a vision of what September 2020 is going to look like. And this will help define whether your organization is ready to lead whether you are ready to lead your organization into a new normal. So now you know what I know, okay? In trying to get to your new normal, I think a lot of you are probably at the thing I did at Volta last year, so you already have my email address and stuff like this. But feel free to contact me with any specific questions you might not want to put in the Q&A box, and I will get back to you. I'm on LinkedIn, so you're welcome to sort of go to LinkedIn and have a peek there. That's cool. Or you can go into the Q&A box, okay, and you can put your questions there. No questions? I must have done an amazing job. That's why there's no questions. I think I'm looking in the right spot. Okay, well, if there's no questions, that's cool. I know you all have real jobs to do. I know Dan's not your priority in life. That's okay. So you do have my contact information. You can also contact through Engineers Nova Scotia, of course, and send them some specific questions that may be able to assist you in the future. So I lived in China for a while. I think some of you know, but the Harvard University thing talked about the fact that only 3% of college-educated, university-educated people spend their time and energy to improve their skills. So you guys are already in the top 3%. So related to China, you're already the tip of the sword for your organization. So now what I challenge you to do is go back to your organization, put some of this stuff in play, and if you have challenges, let me know. I'm always up for giving advice. So I thank you for your time. Well, in the new normal, how do you see the financial contributions adjusted or not? Sorry, we did get a question. I know a whole bunch of you left. That's okay. Basically, with regards to financial contributions, I do think that they are going to change, but anything that changes has to be a negotiation of both sides. I don't think that an organization should unilaterally come down and say, this is how things are going now. There's got to be a little bit of give and take. Now, for me, the financial aspects of a work, of a job, and hopefully you're the same, are not the driving factor. Now, I do know we have to get paid. Getting paid is good. But the challenge of the job, putting some of that in play. So when we're looking at financials and things like this, we may want to be a little flexible on some of the other stuff, or be prepared to negotiate on some other aspects that might be more important to you than just the financials. But I do think financials are going to change because we have decreased revenues. So you got to give your organization a break. They can't do what they used to do. So Bowden, I don't know if that answered your question. If not, you can drop me an email or we can chat offline.